So, sir, my first question to you related to this is, as we already know that NDS, like National Directorate of Security of the Afghanistan, it was sort of like, re-established, I must say, by the help of CIA and RAW. Why I say RAW? Because many of their officers, they were getting trained in New Delhi, and they've been active in Afghanistan now, and they have a very good relationship with the intelligence sharing and all of that with RAW. So how this factor is playing right now?
You see, Raja Saab, the future of India in Afghanistan is totally dependent upon their support of NDS and the Kabul government. And this they have already defined as part of their future strategy in Afghanistan in the face of the American pullout. And since the US Taliban peace deal have been signed, due to which the US forces would be pulling out from Afghanistan by the end of 2021, and India has failed to basically, they tried to detrack this peace process. They definitely tried to somehow finish this US Taliban peace deal. But you see, they most definitely failed, and the proof of their failure lies in the signing of the agreement between US and Taliban. Now, of course, US is trying to address the concerns India has, and the Indian concerns are related to terrorism. But as I was talking earlier, that Indians have got selective amnesia. When they talk about terrorism, they like to talk about the terrorism emanating from Afghanistan and from Pakistan inside India, but they never talk about the terrorism they're sponsoring from Afghanistan inside Pakistan. And we've got proofs. We've got Kalbhushan Jadhav in our custody. We've got Ramdag Bukti sitting there in India. So these are proofs in itself that the Indians are actively sponsoring terrorism, and they made a mistake. I don't know. They later on detracked. But as we were talking earlier, Mr. Ajit Doval, their national security advisor, while talking to university students, already details. He gave gory details of how they're going to finance terrorism inside Pakistan. Now, having said that, talking about future, you see, India's survival in Afghanistan depends upon NDS and Kabul government. And this is why they'll keep on funding NDS, and they will keep on strengthening NDS, and they will keep on funding and strengthening the Afghan National Security Forces, which works under the Kabul government. Now, they also realize that they cannot stop Pakistan's ingress inside Afghanistan, and they also realize that they cannot stop Taliban from coming into power at Kabul. So, to counter that, they have now decided to finance ISISK. The ISISK is a fearsome terrorist organization. Now, there are proofs that Mr. Ajit Doval himself arranged their move from Syria and Iraq into Afghanistan, and they funded their operations inside Afghanistan to counter Taliban there. But if you remember, in 2018, the Taliban literally beheaded the leadership of ISISK in Nangarhar province, and that was widely, published in the media and reported as well. And that was, in fact, the end of ISISK. But the Indians still, the only thing they had at their disposal was the money which they were putting in. So they continued putting in money, and there are mercenaries available in Afghanistan, and they continue to recruit them to work against Taliban and to work against Pakistani interests from Afghanistan. But it's not going to work, Raisa. I was talking earlier, and I'm talking again now to the Indian public, that please stop wasting your money, stop wasting the Indian taxpayers' money on financing terrorism inside Pakistan, because eventually that will lead to Pakistan backtracking on its policy of now not actively supporting insurgency inside India. And that will force Pakistan to go back on supporting the insurgency inside India like we were doing in 1980s. There are legitimate freedom fighting movements there. There are legitimate freedom struggle there in Kashmir. There are legitimate freedom struggle in Mizoram. There are legitimate freedom struggle in Assam. You know, there is a Maoist rebellion there in India. So there's this Khalistan movement, which is a reality in India. And all these things combined together provide fertile grounds for any state to sponsor insurgency inside India, like India is supporting from Afghanistan inside Pakistan. So sense has to prevail somehow in India that they need to detract, and they also need to forego the selective amnesia they have got once they discuss terrorism. And they need to understand what their own intelligence agencies are doing inside Pakistan through the Afghan soil. And they were doing it through Iran, but it recently got countered once Iran backtracked because of Chinese investment there, and they joined the Chinese camp. So we are hoping in future that the Iranians won't allow its soil to be used by the Indians to create insurgency inside Pakistan.
You remember the Colombo attack, the church attack. In that attack, what we saw was the link of the terrorism. It was taken to Kerala, India, and somehow the person who was actually picked up from there, he had links to ISIS-K sitting in Afghanistan. So there are already question marks, big question marks on India's involvement of cross-border terrorism. So I just wanted to ask, somewhere down the line, is it possible that we could say that somehow ISIS-K is being run by RAW at the time, and it has a huge support of NDS, and this is all just to counter the Taliban's force in Afghanistan? And if so, then how could it be stopped?
Right, talking about ISIS-K in particular, you see, the ISIS-K in particular in 2018 lost all its leadership once Taliban beheaded the leadership in Nangarhar province. It was quite a gory incident in which they have cut the heads off of the entire uh, leadership of ISIS-K, and well, it was a public incident and it happened public knowledge. After that, the Indians kept on sponsoring ISIS-K, and by once I say that they kept on sponsoring ISIS-K, they in fact kept on hiring mercenaries up for hire in Afghanistan to do their bid elsewhere. And following this destructive policy of sponsoring terrorism in the region by Mr. Ajit Doval, the Indians really have their designs, and these are the fears in Beijing as well and Islamabad as well, that they want this ISIS-K to operate in the Xinjiang province, where there are existing problems going on. And this is again a main reason of the Chinese now agreement with the Taliban, uh, asking the Taliban to ensure that Afghanistan won't be used as grounds to create insurgency, destabilization inside mainland China, which includes Xinjiang. And Taliban's have already signed it, and it is a historic accord, and it is unprecedented as well. But because of Pakistan, it was made possible. And you see, now coming back to your question, the Colombo incident, you see, there was a report, United Nations Security Council report, regarding Indian sponsoring, the Indian financing of terrorism inside the entire region, in particular Sri Lanka. And Indians in the past have also been supporting the insurgency, the Tamil insurgency there. And the Sri Lankans, they know this fact, and this is why they have got a close alliance going on with Pakistan and with the China to counter the Indian sponsors terrorism inside Sri Lanka. So and you see the Indian media did try to label Pakistan and did try to label Afghanistan as they accused us regarding that blast in Sri Lanka. But since they had no proof, and later on the United Nations also released this report I was talking about, that Indian financiers were involved in financing terrorism inside Sri Lanka. So the Indians really were shown the mirror there by the global community, much to their discomfort. Now, talking about ISIS-K in the future, you see, the Indian stakes in Afghanistan, the Indians believe, can only be secured by three-pronged strategy. Two are made public, and the third is not a public knowledge. Two things are that they want to support, the first two things are they want to keep supporting NDS, they want to keep financing them, and they want to keep financing and supporting and strengthening the Kabul government, which they perceive is working for their interests. And the third prong of their strategy, which is not public knowledge, is keep on financing the ISIS-K in Afghanistan to spread their agenda inside Afghanistan to counter Taliban, and they want to use ISIS-K to spread the Indian agenda in the entire region. And they want them to work against, as I've said, China and Pakistan. And TTP is part of ISIS-K and is part of the same phenomena.
This was the end to our second part of the program, which was talking about whatever is going on in Afghanistan in terms of RAW's activities right now, the current ones. And now we would go towards the future of RAW in Afghanistan. Thank you very much.